U.S. Army soldier gets life sentence for cab driver murder. In the cold atmosphere of January 2024, a tragic story unfolded in Seattle, Washington. This wasn't just an ordinary murder case, but a story about the negligence of the military system and the terrible consequences of allowing a serious offender the opportunity to escape. Nick Hooka, 34, was a taxi driver living with his girlfriend Nicole in Tumwater. With his bright smile and sociable personality, Nick was loved by many. Every day, he diligently drove his taxi, serving passengers throughout the area, always hoping for a bright future with the woman he loved. Nick meant so much to everyone, his loved ones shared tearfully. For Nicole, Nick wasn't just a boyfriend, but also a companion and a solid support in life. They had built a small home together in Tumwater, where they shared happy moments, dreams, and plans for the future. However, on a cold winter day in January 2024, everything changed. Nick's body was discovered outside the South Center Mall. His taxi disappeared, and the lives of those who loved him were suddenly turned upside down. The perpetrator was none other than Jonathan Lee, a soldier in the U.S. Army. What was shocking and outrageous was that at the time of the crime, Lee was in the process of being tried for child sex crimes. Somehow, he had been able to leave the military base without anyone stopping him. Investigators said Lee stabbed Nick to death and stole his taxi to escape while he was on trial. This wasn't just a murder, but evidence of serious oversight in the military's monitoring system. It makes no sense how he could take a vehicle off base without anyone stopping him. Nicole, Nick's girlfriend, expressed her outrage and confusion. Then the car was towed away, and he called Nick. In court, Lee testified that he stabbed Nick after an argument about taxi payment. Initially, Lee didn't plead guilty, but later accepted a plea deal and apologized to Nick's family. However, for Nick's loved ones, that apology couldn't compensate for the great loss they had to bear. One of the biggest questions surrounding this case is how Jonathan Lee, a soldier being tried for child sex crimes, could leave the military base without being stopped. This oversight led to Nick Hooka's tragic death and left an unhealable wound for his family, friends, and loved ones. "They should strip the medals and badges off his damn chest," a relative of Nick expressed their outrage when seeing Lee still wearing his uniform in court. For them, the fact that Lee was still treated as a soldier after committing a terrible crime was an insult. Many believe Nicole has the right to sue the U.S. Army for their negligence. Allowing a dangerous criminal the opportunity to escape and harm others is an unforgivable mistake. I'm so glad he's finally going to a place where he doesn't have the opportunity, just because he's a soldier, to leave base again and hurt another family. Hurt dozens of families, a relative of Nick shared after the trial. On Wednesday, in a military court at Joint Base Lewis McChord, JBLM, Jonathan Lee received a life sentence with the possibility of parole for killing Nick Hooka. The court did not allow filming inside, but reporters and relatives of the victim were present throughout the trial. In addition to murder, Lee also faces a 64-year prison sentence for child sex crimes. With these two sentences, Nick's family believes Lee will not have the opportunity for early parole. "This doesn't bring Nick back and can't complete that family picture," Nicole shared with pain. "But being able to see him for what he did, and knowing that others feel the same way I do, is incredible. It gives me strength." Lee will serve his sentence at the U.S. Disciplinary Barracks in Leavenworth, Kansas. This is one of the most strict military prisons in the United States, housing the most dangerous military criminals. The case has caused a wave of outrage in the community, especially about how Lee was treated after committing the crime. Many expressed anger at seeing Lee still being transported to court in a military transport vehicle, with ample space to move and even holding papers in his hand. "Put him in regular handcuffs. Why does he have so much space to move after what he did to children, to this man?" a resident fumed when seeing Lee being taken to court. "They put him in this transport, this minivan, put him in a regular police car." Many also questioned why Lee was still allowed to wear his uniform in court. For them, allowing a murderer and child sex offender to continue wearing a military uniform was an insult to the honor of the military. "They should put him in a different uniform, a uniform of disgrace," a resident expressed their view. "They should strip him of all badges, everything." To better understand the case's development, we need to go back to the first days of January 2024. Jonathan Lee, a soldier in the U.S. Army, was in the process of being tried for child sex crimes. Despite facing serious charges, Lee somehow could leave the military base without anyone stopping him. According to Lee's testimony in court, he called a taxi, and Nick Hooka was the one who came to pick him up. Then, an argument about taxi payment broke out between the two. The argument quickly escalated and ended with Lee stabbing Nick to death. He then stole Nick's taxi to escape. I was like, why did he stab us? Was he drunk? A witness wondered when hearing about the incident. He stole the car to escape because of sex crimes against children. I guess we know he's guilty of that, huh? Nick's taxi was later towed away, and Lee called Nick. This detail raises many questions about how Lee got Nick's phone number, and whether this was a random encounter or had been planned in advance. Nick's body was discovered outside the South Center Mall. Police quickly launched an investigation and identified Jonathan Lee as the main suspect. After a period of pursuit, Lee was arrested and brought to trial. The Jonathan Lee case not only left emotional wounds for Nick's family, but also has long-term impacts on the community and the military system. For Nick's family, they must learn to live with the pain of loss and adjust to life without the presence of their loved one. Nicole has to face returning to an empty house, a place that once held happy memories with Nick. For the community, the case has raised concerns about safety and security. If a soldier being tried for serious crimes can easily leave a military base and harm others, are there other criminals who are free to move around without supervision? For the military system, the case is a wake-up call about the need to strengthen security and surveillance measures. It also raises questions about how the military treats soldiers accused of serious crimes and whether there should be stricter regulations on their movement and access. The Jonathan Lee case is a heartbreaking tragedy, a story of loss, pain, and system failures. Nick Hooka's death leaves an unhealable wound for his family, friends, and loved ones. Although Jonathan Lee has received an appropriate sentence for his crime, it cannot bring Nick back. For Nicole and Nick's family, they will have to live with the pain of loss for the rest of their lives. Hopefully, from this tragedy, valuable lessons will be learned, and necessary measures will be taken to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. That would be the best way to remember Nick Hooka and ensure that his death was not completely meaningless.